Last night we had an amazing call with 3 people who had just passed their PANCE and one who was seeing her end of rotation exam scores continue to rise and is very excited about it. I wanted to share that call with everyone in the community because I'm really excited about what these people have been able to do, and I want you to hear it straight from them. So I'm not going to talk anymore here. Let's just go ahead and jump right in. Someone else is joining. So welcome tonight. The other night we did a kind of a crash course in some overall ideas for studying, for test prep, for test taking skills. And we went through a whole mess of stuff really, really quick. Tonight is going to be a little bit different. What I wanted to do was go through some of the information for the 33 days to pass the PANCE program. As I've been sharing, and I know I've been sending out a ton of email lately, but I'm really, really excited about how the results have been coming in for this program over the past year, but in particular, over the past little bit, even just this week, I've been hearing from more and more people. Some people's scores don't move, and I don't mean to sell that everybody, it's a magic pill. It certainly isn't that at all. But the numbers have been substantial. And the biggest thing for me in that vein is the people who have previously failed this exam multiple times and then gone through this program and moved their scores a ton. Overall, it's hard to look at scores because it's above 90% the initial passing rate. So people say like, oh, what's the passing rate after this? And it's hard to say because most of the people who come through here are multi-test takers, right? It's not like people who are taking it for the first time. So the numbers don't match up. But to get people to shift 50, 100, 100, I had someone literally this morning, it was this morning? Yes, this morning email me and said they went up 151 points. That's just insane. And it was their 4th attempt. So to me, that just, again, shows me how valuable the stuff we're doing here is and how, if you put it to use, what a difference it can make. And that's got me really, really excited, like I said, this time around in particular. And so what I wanted to do tonight was bring on some people who've been through the program, who have had success with the program, and let them talk about it a little bit, and then let you guys ask questions of them so you can get a better idea for what to expect. So we can go ahead and get started with that. Christy, I hadn't heard from you. I didn't even know you were showing up tonight.
Hi, yeah. I haven't taken my exam yet, so
All right.
May 2nd.
May 2nd. Oh, so soon. Great. So Christy just finished the February cohort with us. I said a couple other people here. So great. All right. So you're just about ready. So tonight I have Lauren, Tim, Haley, and Valerie with us. I think that's everybody who was going to share some stories with us tonight. As far as their progress, how they've done, what they got out of the program, a little bit different stories because Valerie is still in school. And I know some people looking at this program were still in their rotations phase, working on their medicine courses. There are some people in all different places here. So I thought it'd be great to have her come on and share that perspective. So for starters, if you guys could just, come through, and Tim, if you can't, because you're moving, that's fine. Just do a quick introduction, say hello, and let us know where you are in your journey at the moment. So Lauren, why don't you go first?
Okay.
Or Tim, either way.
I can go. I just couldn't see anyone else, so I didn't know who else was ready to rock.
Perfect.
My name is Tim Lund. I am in Utah. I graduated my PA program in August and took the PANCE the first week of September. So I took it pretty fast out of school and didn't pass. Got a 319 on that exam. So basically after that, I kind of did the same thing I was doing, just kind of studying and trying to do better. But took it again in December, and again, my score went up, but I didn't pass, and it was devastating, and it was awful, and it was disappointing for me and my family, everyone who was rooting for me, I'm sure. But so then I was like, what am I going to do? I got to do something different. And I had heard about PA exam review from a couple of my classmates, and went through some of the podcasts and things like that, and then I got an advertisement from Brian for one of the cohorts that was going to start in February for the 33-day program, and I jumped on it. I thought that would be a good thing for me personally, and to be able to do something different and to have something that I could do every day, in addition to just studying the content from the PANCE blueprint. And ended up taking the PANCE again March 31st, and then ended up passing. My score went up to a 413. So it jumped up by about 82 points, something like that, 83 points, which was great. I was very happy. I did a couple of things studying with a couple of my classmates that volunteered their time, and Lauren, this other person you're going to talk to, she volunteered some of her time to go over some questions and things, and then I even hired a private tutor to help me go over the content some more, which, I mean, it was good, but to be totally honest, I thought it was the least effective thing, and it cost me the most money, so it was really kind of ironic. But my favorite thing, to be totally honest, and not trying to be too markety sounding, but my favorite thing was going through this 33-day program with a bunch of other people in the cohort and having that camaraderie and being able to see a new message every day for Brian and have our live calls and, you know, have a structure of studying all the PANCE content as well. And it just turned out to be one of the best
Kendall's
things I
on here.
probably did.
You think that's Kendall? Kendall?
Anyway, can you hear me, guys?
She passed.
Oh, sorry. I hope y'all heard that. I'm gonna stop talking for me and really glad I went to 33.
Sound like you broke up a little there at the end, but I think we got most of it. Thank you very much. And it's funny that you say that about the one-on-one tutoring, because I run into that with, you know, people requesting me to help them one-on-one. Like I said, that's where this program developed, was people coming in, and I was getting emails on a daily basis saying, hey, can you work with me one-on-one? And the answer is I could. But, you know, like you said, it's expensive. And for me to take my time and do that, I can help one person. And it's one, it would cost a lot of money. Two, I can't do, and Tim, you can attest to this, and the rest of you can, I can't do for one person what I could do in this program for even each individual. If we were to meet one-on-one, there's just no way to cover the material that I cover and to get people through it. It just wouldn't work. And that kind of occurred to me as I was talking with a friend of mine who had just signed his kid up for an SAT prep tutor at 10 sessions at $110, or 12 sessions at $110 a piece. And I was like, holy bro, I can't, like, and that's for an SAT prep course. I can't imagine what I'd have to charge people for this to do one-on-one. And again, I don't think, like you said, even if I were to do it, and I think pretty highly of myself, I don't think I could do it as much work in a one-on-one session to get people as far as I can in this format. So that's sort of the conclusion I came to. Lauren, can you share a little bit about your story? And again, you don't have to go through the entire picture just yet. We'll get to some of it as we go, but you could fill us in as to where you started and where you're at.
Sure. I'll give you the spark notes. So I'm Lauren. I graduated in December. I actually took my PANCE before I graduated because the end date was a week out. So they had us take it so that we could take it before like Christmas break or whatever. So I actually found out the day before graduation that I failed. So that was kind of a bummer.
Oh,
that was like a big bummer. And by like a couple points too. And I'd taken one of those like 3-day crash courses with like a lot of promises. And when I think back, I think like that's not how I learned. So I don't know what, I don't even know what I was thinking there. And I've listened to your podcast all the time, and I kept thinking like I should have done that. So it kind of worked out that I did a February one because I had to wait the 3 months anyway. So I did your program. I passed. And now I'm waiting because in August last year, I was already board selected for direct commission as a first lieutenant with the Army. So I'm going to be an Army PA. Hooah. And
nice.
yeah, so So now I'm just, I'm in the hurry up and wait phase. So I'm just waiting for my assignment and my orders, and I'm so excited to be able
that
to
sounds like the
serve
military
people.
in general. That should be good prepared. I have a lot of military in my
Yeah.
family. This is pretty much a standard.
Yeah, and I feel like after this, I mean, I actually feel like, what's the army gonna throw at me? Which is crazy, which is probably crazy because my husband's former army, and he's like, they're gonna break you, which is fine. But I feel like after this experience, after coming back and passing, I feel I know I have the discipline, and you helped me find that. So thank you.
No, and that's a story. I do share that with people afterwards and say, listen, this is something to build from, right? We talk a lot about building confidence throughout the program. And one way we do that is through past successes and past challenges. And now, as much as this sucks and nobody wants to have been there, you now have a great story, right, to build from. So yes, that is kind of it's a good takeaway, right? You want to make sure you take that with you. You don't want to be there, but you take that with you. Haley, why don't you fill us in a little?
Hey everyone, my name's Haley. I'm from Miami, Florida. I took my PANCE the third time on March 15th and I passed after doing the course. I did pick up and move to Chicago for 7 weeks in complete isolation. So that was good. And I had Lauren helping me towards the end there too, studying because our tests were a week apart. So that was really nice. I think the biggest thing for me in the course, having failed already twice, was having people around me that knew what it felt like, because when you're constantly comparing yourself to your classmates that passed, or you're on Instagram and you see everything, like it hurts you, right? For a while there I was really struggling with my self-confidence and just making decisions in general, and I feel like this course helped me get that back, so I'm really thankful for it. I'm still waiting for my license because the state of Florida takes a little bit of time. But I am interviewing for positions actively, so I'm looking forward to seeing what happens next.
Nice. And I hope you guys understand what both Haley and Tim have said. And Lauren was a great member of the group, right? And as everybody was, but certainly one of the things that has blown me away about this program is the group setting. I when I first created the program, I kind of added it in as an afterthought because a buddy of mine built the software we use for the groups. So I almost did it to help him as like let me just see if this kind of works and how, you can think private Facebook group is sort of what it's like, but so I built it, so I included it for him and I thought, maybe this will be all right. And it's really taken off and been something that's been a tremendous help. I just got an email from somebody in the November cohort. They just disbanded their study group last week. I think that a couple of them had put together and been meeting weekly since November. I think that just finally trailed off. And, so the groups have been a substantial benefit. And again, I think I bring a lot to the table, but having so many other voices and so many people, because again, I can't be everywhere. I can't help everybody. It just isn't, it doesn't make any sense. It's obviously not going to be the way it can work. I try to be as available as possible, but having those other people there to answer questions, to participate, to bring up resources has been a tremendous benefit that like I said, I quite frankly wasn't expecting it to be as valuable as it is. And then Valerie, why don't you finish this off with just the introduction part of this?
Hi, so I have a different perspective because I'm still in school, but I had to make this really short. I had failed an EOR and I was like, I was starting to get anxiety after failing that first one. And so I was like, well, like maybe I should try something different. And then I had heard in one of these calls someone talk about being in school and how it would help them. And then I think what almost everyone has said is, I wish I had learned these things sooner. And I was like, I can learn these things sooner. Like I am like right in the beginning of doing this. And so I after that first failure of the EOR, I retook it and I passed it by like 1 point. And then during the program, I had an EOR 7 days in, and just 7 days in, I didn't get the score I wanted. I only passed by 2 points, but my anxiety was gone. And that it's like a huge weight off of your shoulders to even have that one portion of this is the mental portion out of the way. So that was a big thing. And then after finishing the program, that last EOR I took, so again, passing by 1 or 2 points on my previous EORs. And then after finishing the program, I scored above the national mean by quite a lot. Like it was I was like, I didn't believe what I got. I scored really well. And so I highly recommend it. And even if you don't like, I feel like nobody told us what to do when we got to this point. And even like Brian telling us how to set up a schedule, like he teaches you how to do that, and me sticking to it, like it really helps. And now I'm finding that I am like finishing the blueprint topics way faster than I was in the past. Like I at every single point of like PA school and like EORs, I feel like I was always reviewing like even the week before, like still trying to learn things. And now like I'm in my third week of this current EOR and I've completely gone through the blueprint next one. And I'm just reviewing 3 weeks. Like that's crazy. I never would have done this if it wasn't for, like, honestly, if it wasn't for this program. It's taught me a lot. And I'm not saying that you guys will be that fast, but he gives you tools to try to like focus your studying and not waste so much time.
And thank you, because that's a big part, right? Is that it's pushback I got even this week from somebody when I was even actually thinking the last meeting when we were talking about some active studying tips and some different things. And again, I moved very quick in that meeting on Thursday night. I'm sorry, on Wednesday night. So I get that obviously I couldn't explain everything. But there was someone asked a question about, well, doesn't this stuff take longer because you're asking me to do all these other activities, right? And I say, yes, of course it takes longer, but that you hold on to it. So you make up all this ground that you were previously wasting. So yes, you can get through the book faster by just flipping the pages. Of course you can, but that doesn't necessarily get you where you want to go. So that's fantastic. And as far as EORs go, again, I had in the very first cohort, Andy was my star pupil in that one. I don't know if you heard his story. I don't think I uploaded it into YouTube, but it's in the app. His conversation with me after the program, and he had failed, I think, 2 end of rotation exams. So he was on the border for being kicked out of his program for his last end of rotation exam. So he was horrified, right? He couldn't care less about the PANCE, because the PANCE you could fail a couple times. If he failed his end of rotation exam, he was done without a chance to take the PANCE. And he had an under 2-year-old at home. He was finishing everything up, and he was terrified. But he joined the program and did everything that I asked him to do. And he went all out and participated and wound up absolutely crushing that. And then to Lauren's point, he turned around and was like, the PANCE is going to be easy because I could fail that and I'm fine. Like I've already been through the hard part. I've done some hard things. I'm in a good spot. So he was a great success story in that same vein of learning those skills and getting to practice those skills over time, made it much, much easier. I sent out an email a couple of days ago. I'm in talks with some different PA programs trying to do just that, right? Trying to bring the things that I teach, the skills, the methods, the philosophies, all that stuff to people earlier rather than a couple of days before their PANCE or before their PANRE, to try and make sure that they could use these things, throughout either your entire PA program or, at the very least throughout, your your clinical year on your end of rotation exams and your medicine stuff. Because I do think it would be incredibly valuable to get to practice longer and to be able to use it. Because like you said, they show you, the line I like is they teach you what to learn. They don't teach you how to learn, right? When you get to PA school. And I equate it to being in, I was always in honors English, right? So because I could read and I could interpret really well, but my grammar, and as most of you know who follow me, my grammar and my spelling are horrific, right? I never got taught those skills. We sort of jumped over that. And I feel like that's what happens here. Everybody was always smart enough to do well in undergrad. Everybody was always smart enough to get by. Then you get to PA school and you get slammed with all this information, and no one shows you how to work through that, that volume, right, as fast as you need to and hold on to as much as you can. So great. You know what? We're already 30 minutes into this call, which I knew was going to happen when we started. So let me do this before I have some questions for you guys, but let me see if anybody else has questions. Let me open it to the floor before we get to the hour mark and we don't have time for that. So if anybody has any questions for any of our panelists, let's call them that, any of our panelists, let's go ahead and you can just go ahead and unmute and fire away if you like. And if not, like I said, I have some things I would like to know, because I haven't talked to these guys since they have been through the program. They emailed me a little bit to let me know where they were at, but I haven't, this is kind of fun for me because I haven't got to see them since, and we spent a lot of time together. Questions, thoughts?
I just wanted to ask for the people who had failed before, who went in to take it again, what was it like that morning? Like, I know the first time I took it and I failed, like, I was super anxious and I'm just worried that I'm gonna do it all again with the anxiety. And like, what was it like for you, kind of like that morning, like remaining level-headed and kind of getting in there and just doing it?
So for me, I made like a pants pump up playlist. I stayed at a hotel actually. I booked myself a suite. I got a massage the day before. I had no kids, no one with me. It was amazing. Anyway, so I woke up that morning. I had my list going. I went to use the gym I used the gym at the hotel. The gym was broken. So I lifted what weights I could find. I ran around the hotel 10 times to do a mile, and listened to my list and then just got ready. But when I went in, I still was feeling like a little like, okay, like I don't use the word anxious or nervous anymore. It's all excited. I felt excited. And I don't know, I felt pretty good. I did take it at a different testing center the second time just because of what was available to book. But I felt different in that I knew I put in the work. So I knew that like no matter what was going to happen, I wasn't going to feel really, I mean, I guess I would feel disappointed if I didn't pass, but I felt like I gave it my all. And so that amongst the excitement, that gave me a little bit of calm.
Thank you.
But that was for me. Yeah.
I'm excited.
Brian actually had mentioned like writing down the things that we had done to prepare for the pants because I feel like no matter what you do, once you get to the end, you feel like you didn't do enough. So I actually just had it, but I wrote down like things that I did to prepare.
Nice.
And I won't read all of it, but it was like over 2,000 Rosh questions, over 1,800 U-World questions, 2 years of PA school, 15 plus podcasts, like 30 hours studying with Lauren, like things like that. Like that's what I wrote down on my card so that the day before I could look at it and be like, yeah, I actually did all of this to prepare. There's no reason why I shouldn't pass.
So I did a lot of the same things that Lauren and Haley did. So I wrote my confidence card. That's what Brian called it with our, what did I do to prepare and how should I feel confident about this and why? So I did that. I kept up my little exercise routine and did it the morning of taking the pants. And I was sitting in the testing center and was listening to my headphones and they're like, sir, you need to put away your cell phone in the waiting room. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I put my cell phone away, but I got through a couple of songs that I was trying to and not worry and everything else. And something I'll say that's a little different from everyone else so far, and we talked about this in our cohort, but after taking the pants twice and feeling so awful about having failed it, I mean, and I think going through PA school in general is enough to give anybody anxiety and depression, which it literally did for me. And so I, I talked to my medical provider about those things, and even though a lot of it was situational through all the test taking and all the pants prep and everything else, I was able to apply for accommodations through the NCCPA to get extra time to take the pants. And to be totally honest, that alone like helped take the edge off and help take the anxiety away, like at least by half. And that helped me so much in the day of and sitting for the pants and having that extra time and even knowing I had it, like it was just like a security blanket. And even though I don't know if I even needed it, it still helped me just to know that. So if you have those things, if you have those conditions, then don't hesitate to apply for them right now, through the NCCPA, or at least when you're getting ready to take PANCE. Because the first time I thought about doing that was my second time taking it. I'm like, no, I don't need that. And I think I did need it, and it helped me, I think, immensely. So don't be afraid to do that if you think it'll help you.
Thank you.
Nice. All right. So anybody, all right. So anyone else have questions? Thank you, Christy, for these guys, why we have them here. Like I said, if not, I'll happily have things to ask them. All right, my next one, again, if you have something and you wanted to chime in or drop it into the chat, certainly please go right ahead. My next one, purely for the people who are listening in on this, as a question as to what they, the decisions that they need to make moving forward. What was your biggest concern, fear, signing up for this program? What was the hesitation? What was the issue that made you unsure? And then how you got over that or realized it was a non-issue?
I didn't know what the program was. Like, I didn't understand it. So I was like, why am I gonna do that? But it was worth it, obviously.
I agree. I have a hard time putting it all together and explaining it. That's why I do these. One of the reasons I do these calls.
I too was like 33 days is a long time, but then I realized I like to be thorough, and that again, that 3-day course wasn't like, it was just not for my brain. And I don't know. I mean, honestly, I wanted to do the November one, but I was graduating in December and I didn't think I could really just do that.
Yeah.
So that was really, I don't know. I didn't really have a qualm, except I was like, well, I guess I didn't pass, so I'm gonna do this. I've been listening to Brian this whole time. Like, why wouldn't I? So sorry, that wasn't like a good answer, but that was my
It's perfect. It's perfect.
My issue was because I'm in school, I was like, well, do I have time? And I made time because I wanted to change, you know what I mean? And you have to want to do something different. Like you have to want that for yourself. And so I felt very desperate to kind of change my studying and all my old ways. So I made the time, which is crazy because he gives you a lot of things to do, but because you're becoming a better studier, like you just make the time. And I know like it's easier for me to say that, but you understand it if you have the drive to make those changes. And even if you don't have the motivation, like he gives you motivation. Like and the group gives you motivation too. So and it was worth it for me as well.
Great. There's a great question in the chat, which is on my list as well, which is how far in advance would you recommend doing the program before the PANCE? I've gone back and forth with some people. I set it up as a 33 days because I was trying in that very first cohort back in 2020, in April 2022, I had people who were taking their exam. So I actually had them in mind as I was building it out and saying, how quick can I get through this? And some people take it on day 34, right? It was designed that you could do that. I don't think that's a great idea, but you certainly could if you're in a bind. But I've talked with a few people who have after going through it, had some different ideas. Lauren, you answered in the chat, but could you hop in and?
Sure. So I took mine, I think I was about 6 weeks out. It worked out that I had time for the 33 days exactly, and then 2 weeks until test day. And you'll learn you're not going to study the day before. You are not. You're not going to study the day before the test. It gave me enough of a buffer because like I have 2 kids and even if you get sick during those 33 days, which you might, or if there's a death in the family, like things happen in 33 days, right? It's not all going to go to plan. So to me, having that like little 2-week buffer was just enough to like keep the momentum going, and not get too far out. But I don't know what others think, but that for me, that was just about perfect.
So I put this in the chat too, but after the 33 days, I had almost 30 days, I think, afterwards. So what I ended up doing was going through the content again in the 30 days of study, but also it gave me a chance to watch some of the videos over again and gave me extra time to do the what Brian will call the dailies, just to keep doing those things over and over again to try and just be as prepared and as good as I could get so that I could have optimum preparation. So I'd recommend at least having it, like Lauren said, a couple of weeks to keep doing things, but again, allowing a buffer just in case something else happens that you have to deal with.
Yeah, and that's
I
kind of, oh, sorry, go ahead, Haley.
Oh, I took my test 1 week after finishing the course. That worked for me though, just because I was already at this place where I was like, okay, this is my third time. I got this under, under my belt. Like, I think it's time for me to just take the test. So that's what I did. I did get sick during the course, for 2 weeks, so some days were a little slower, but I don't regret what I did. I think at that point in time, like I was just ready to take it.
Yeah, and that's why it's a little bit of a tough question. I definitely get that emailed into me a lot, right? When should you do it? It's a little bit hard for me to answer because everyone's situation is a little bit different. Of course, your mental states are all a little bit different. I know by the time I finished studying for my PANREs, I was done. Like I needed to take it the next day because I was ready to explode. I couldn't possibly have studied any longer or gone on any further. So some people like to push things back a little bit, and I often argue with those people who want to keep pushing their test back. There's a lot of problems there too. The thing is, like Lauren said, the 33 days is great, but we do move, right? It sounds like a long time, but it goes, once you get partway into it, all of a sudden things pick up and you have issues with, like she said, we always have somebody's grandmother got sick, someone's dog dies, you get sick. There's things that happen that take you out of commission for 2 or 3 days. And all of a sudden, I have systems and plans in place to help people with those situations. But if you have no buffer time, then you have no buffer time and it gets a little bit harder. So I agree. I think at least having 2 weeks after makes sense. At least that way, if you want to go away for a weekend and not think about stuff, great, you can do that. If someone gets sick, great, you can do that. Some people have suggested, a month or two. To me, that seems long, but I don't have any problem with it. As Valerie can tell you, I also think there's a lot of value in doing this really early and then having time to learn it and practice it. If you're in school, I think there's a ton of value there. So it just depends a little bit on your individual situations. And I have a lot of people, actually like Andrea here, who's been through the program a number of times because she's found value in the program, but not only in the program, but also in the groups and in that effort moving forward and having that camaraderie and moving along. So I think so she's been a great member as well, but you'll see that's, so it sort of depends on your situation, but I wouldn't, if you have the space, don't schedule it for the 34th day. That isn't just not a good plan. Something's going to go wrong. All right. One of the things that I wanted to ask also was I was curious while you were in the program, what you thought was the most valuable thing and if that changed after you took your test.
I'll just say what I was thinking because I really think that so Brian brings this up during the program, and he says each one of the things he advises you to do are going to help you improve a little bit, and you add them all together, and it's going to end up increasing your test taking ability and your overall outcome by quite a bit more than any one or two things by themselves. I don't think that changed for me. Well, I think I believed that to begin with, but then I really think it was confirmed to me afterwards and toward the end, thinking, you know what, I've been doing all these little things, and I think they're going to amount to something a lot larger in results. And so I really believe that's true. In my jargon, I call it like incremental gains or marginal gains. And so I really think that doing a bunch of little things adding up to a larger result is really, something that's true, and it's true in life, and it's true in, preparing for the PANCE with the PAN, I'd say.
Great.
I pretty much kept up with the dailies, which is it's what they sound like, right? They're daily activities that Brian has you do. There are 5. I feel like it was very good for my mental health, my physical health. I I kind of got my husband on board with the 75 hard inadvertently. He's down 30
Nice.
pounds. Yeah,
Sweet. Look at that.
we're all, the littlest one is started soccer. My daughter's in ballet. We're all like, just, I don't know.
That's
I feel
great.
like my whole family has like leveled up, and I really enjoy it. I like it. So thank you.
I agree with Lauren, but to just say something different, I think Brian taught me, which is something that I've always been very big on, is you don't need to study 12 hours a day to do well. If you're studying for 12 hours a day, then you're not being efficient. I think I studied at max 6 hours on certain days. I was really studying between 3 to 4 hours a day. And I was doing so by limiting my resources, or not limiting, but consolidating my resources in the way that I learned best. So I'm an auditory learner. So I was listening to Brian's podcast, and then I was following the podcast with his like book that he provided us as well. So that's how I was going about it, and that's been very helpful. And it's also taught me moving forward that there's multiple ways to do something, and it doesn't need to take me forever to do it. I don't need to put so much time into it. It just needs to be quality.
Beautiful. All right. Actually, that fit in well. Janet, can you come on and ask your question? Is that possible? Because I don't quite understand it. I see what you're saying, but I have a question for you about it. Oh, maybe not. Because Janet asked, what's the most important resource you used? I don't know if you can answer that. It's a little bit vague. I'd want that to be, if I'm answering that, I'd want it to be a little more specific. Oh, but her microphone doesn't work, is the message I just got. Or she's hiding. That's just as likely. Can you make that a little bit more specific in the chat? Because one of the things, and they've talked about this a little bit, that I absolutely teach is limiting your resources. Most people, when by the time they get to the end, to the PANCE, they've got a stack of books this high. And to me, that's just creates anxiety and torture. It's not helpful. Narrowing down what you do is a much, much better idea. And I have a whole system for doing that as well. What is the most important resource you use for test banks to study? I'm not sure. Okay. Does anybody want to take that one and see if they could help out a little bit there?
I just used Rosh a lot because I think it's the most sort of user friendly. And I think that again, like trying to bounce back and forth between one or two, or, one or two more, like Ryan said, I think it just creates anxiety. Like I used one from McGraw-Hill, and honestly, I didn't think it was as good of a platform, and I didn't think I thought the test questions were harder, and that just created more anxiety for me. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to stick with one, and I like Rosh a lot, so I used Rosh Review, and then I also used, like, for a content manual, PANCE Prep Pearls, because multiple people I know had encouraged me to do that just because it's pretty simple and it wasn't too expensive. And anyway, it was just something good I could have to sort of recreate, a basic outline for each condition. At the light. Anyway, turn right, so those are my two things.
I did Rosh because we were supplied that from our school. And then, like, side note, if you fail, they're 100% guaranteed. So you email them and they'll extend your question bank. I feel like I kind of blended. I limited my resources because I felt like I had 20, and I did Brian's podcast with the notes, like what Haley did. I also studied with Haley, and then I also studied with Tim after too. So I did like Rosh, I did Brian's podcast, and then whatever was missing, I would kind of read along in PANCE Prep Pearls, and that was it. The end. That was it. Anything more, it got too muddy, and it gave me just enough information so I didn't, get into the weeds, so to speak, which I think was my problem in PA school the whole time anyway. So that's what I did.
Just before anybody else chimes in there, I think it's one of the things Valerie touched on is early on in the program. I think it's day 2-ish, day 3-ish. I go through exactly what Lauren's talking about, how to stay out of the weeds, how to not spend your time in the minutia. It's always a question I get constantly is, how do I know how deep to go? How long do I spend? And most people judge it on time, right? If I spend 12 hours, well, then I probably covered enough. And that's a terrible way to do it. There are much, much better ways than I obviously I can't explain them in the next 30 seconds, but that is a big part of what we do in the first part of the program, is go through some of those techniques and decide in making those decisions so that you don't feel like you have to get through all of current to know what's going on. I'm a big fan of, one review book, one set of things, and then learn that as you go, and you'll be in good shape. I hate this question to the extent that I don't think everyone's looking for a magic bullet. What did the person who passed use? I want to use that. I don't know if one of always one of Stephen King's. He's a very, very famous author. If you guys don't know him, who has written hundreds of books. And one of his least favorite questions is, what kind of pencils do you write with? Right? Like, it doesn't make any sense. He gets furious and starts throwing things at people when he gets to ask that question, because it doesn't matter what pencil you use. It doesn't matter if you write on your typewriter, a pencil, or a word processor. That's not what's going to get you there. Now, do I think certain resources match up better with certain people? Of course, absolutely. I love bullets. I'm a big fan of bulleted lists. That's how I learn. If you go on my website, that's how all my notes are set up, right? That's the way that I do it for that reason. But everybody's going to be a little bit different. And I think most of the resources are good. Yes, the question banks are going to be a little bit different. Some are a little harder. Some are a little easier. Some have longer questions. Some have shorter questions. But there's no magic bullet, right? That's the one that this person used. So if I use that, I'll be okay. That doesn't exist. Does anybody else want to chime in on that one?
Yeah, I just want to give a quick shout out to UWorld, because I really like that question bank, but like Brian said, and how like a lot of people have said, the questions are just way too long. Like, I have Rosh as well that I use for like timed, but for me, it's impossible to do timed on UWorld. The stems are too long, but I love their explanations. I feel like they go really in depth with why you got questions wrong, which was something that I needed to focus on in terms of like content. And then I also like their charts, and I like that you can turn things into flashcards, and the flashcards are spatial repetition. And so that's something that has really helped me, because it reminds me of Brian's book, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm forgetting the name, Final Step.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, so I create my own like version of that, as well as like look at his stuff. But I do that with flashcards. Like, I just ask like simple things that I'm like, man, I keep forgetting this. Like, I can get this right on an exam. And I have been like, what is the treatment for like otitis media? Like, I could not remember it, but it's like, there's one answer, for like in P's or whatever. So love UWorld, but I wouldn't use it as your only test bank. I know you should like stick to limited, but I love Rosh and UWorld together.
No, I agree. That's actually, I'm starting to find that obviously everything's more money, right? And so that sort of stinks. But to me, that balance has seemed to be pretty good, because one or the other, they're definitely geared in their own directions, and you can get skewed a little bit, both good and bad. And the people who it's easier for me to work with people who have both, because you can kind of bounce back and forth a little. I don't think you have to, but I do kind of agree with you on that one. I hate adding in more stuff, but kind of do. I see the value there. But again, I think most of the content programs, I think most of your review books, I think most of your test banks, I think they're good. I think they're, I haven't come across one that people are like, don't use this one, but the reasons to use each one are specific to individuals in most cases. So it's hard to recommend, like I said, that magic bullet. If we had it, that would be great, but I don't.
I'll publish one, and then you guys can all buy it.
There you go.
Just
Please.
kidding. Well,
That would be great. Anybody else have questions?
Can you address anything in regards to the Panry for people that have taken the Panry? I've taken the Panry 4 times, twice in the last 6 months, and I never heard of your program until Alex, who had taken another program that I had been a part of as well. And the other program was excellent. I learned a ton. and got a great grade out of it. Really learned a lot. Went in and took it the first time. Was like, got it, not a problem, passed it. May not have done great, but I know I passed it. Got my score, and I didn't. Oh crap! So studied again, and the first thing in my mind, very similar to the gentleman that was speaking earlier, is like, I'm running out of time, and so got an accommodation. Took it the second time, felt terrible, and of course, score was better, but didn't pass it again. So then I heard about your program, and I had actually, I'm sorry, Brian, but never had heard anything about you at all. But then I'm hearing what everyone is doing. Do you have any, people that have done the PANRE and their results and things like that?
So a lot of people come through and ask about the PANRE. Not a lot. There's probably the bulk of people fall into the PANCE, right? That's just going to be the nature of the system. There's two sets of outliers. One is going to be Valerie, who's still a student, and then the other is people taking their PANRE. Those are the two sort of, maybe they make up out of 34, 20 to 40 people in a cohort, they maybe make up 4 or 5 of those on either end. The answer really is, to me, and I don't remember if I talked about this on Wednesday when you were there or not, but I don't know what you scored on your PANCE initially was, or what your previous PANREs were. But one of the things that sent me down this path in general, I had started the podcast. I was teaching the medical stuff the way that I do. I have a specific style for the way that the podcast works and the way that I pull information out that I think is helpful, and just a little bit different idea of how to go about it. But one of the things that pushed me a lot more toward the skills section, right, towards the test taking skills, toward the study skills, towards the mental aspects of test taking and studying, is I came across and I so wish I could find it, but I can't. I came across a study about 8 years ago that was comparing practicing PAs, their PANRE scores to their PANCE scores. And the question was, like, let's say you worked in ID. What did your score look like on your PANCE versus what it looks like now, 6 years later? What does it look like 6 years after that? And they compared these things, and what they found was whatever you got on your PANCE, you got on your PANRE for most people, that it didn't matter. So there's two things there. One is the stuff on the PANCE isn't necessarily what you're practicing, right? We all know that it's close and it's not wrong. It just is going to be a little bit different than what you're actually practicing. In my head, my takeaway from that discussion was, this is a game, right? This is a set of rules. It has a set of tactics. It's like playing chess. You can, if you don't know how to work the strategy, if you don't know how to work the rules, or if you do, either direction, right? But you're going to wind up in a similar spot, because those skills aren't going to change 6 years later. That's what doesn't change, is your ability to take the test, your ability to study. And those are the things that I started thinking about. Holy cow, if I could move those, and I could do that for somebody like Valerie early in her PA, as a student, and she can have that with her for the next months, years, whatever, we can really do some fun things, right? So that's where I started pushing the podcast more towards. That's where I started pushing the emails and things I put out more towards, away from the medical content. Not, again, medical content is baseline. You have to have that. I'm never going to tell you not to learn the medical content. But with those skills, we can do a whole lot of things. And that works for the PANRE, that works for EORs, that works for the PANCE, that works, like I said, that works on my my ACLS test I just had to do, my BLS test I just had to do. I use the same exact things so that I'm not sitting there twitching throughout the class. One of my fun stories with that was I did BLS with a friend of mine at work, not this year, not this set, but the year before, 2 years ago. And I was sitting there writing content for this. I was writing a newsletter, right? I was doing that during the class, and she was head down in the book, and she's super smart. She's probably smarter than I am. But I walked out of there with the same score she did. Or actually, she did a little better than me. I will say that. She did a little better than me. But we both passed. We both did just fine. But she was one of these people who just cranks on the content and gets very tight, very nervous, feels like she has to work. And you can hear from the people here tonight, That's something I try to push people away from and give them the confidence, the skills, the tools to fall back on, so they don't feel that pressure, so they don't feel that that whatever that crushing feeling is. And if we can clear all of that stuff out, I feel like most people can then they can express what they know. And if you can express what you know, most people when they get to this point in their careers know a heck of a lot, right? So that's why I've been pushing that button for, like I said, and in this program for a year, and I've been absolutely stunned by what it can do. So you ask about specifically the PAN rate. I don't see that as really being much different than what I would do for the PANCE. Now, is the content slightly different? We talked about that the other day. Yes, it's slightly different. Is your schedule, because you're working full time, if you are, I don't know, going to be slightly different than somebody who's failed the PANCE twice and is doing like, this is what I'm doing 6-8 hours a day. Yes, your schedule is going to be different. That being said, it's one of the reasons I designed this program the way I did, because it's asynchronous, so you can do it whenever you want. The group is available to you and people are in there, so you can go meet up with people if you want. But you don't have to be anywhere, right? There's no specific set times. You get your information, you figure out your schedule, and you work within your schedule. So that's one of the things that was really important to me when I designed it. Was I didn't want to get in the way of your day. I didn't want to get in the way of you studying. I didn't want to get in the way of you working. I wanted to deliver to you everything I could and be available for you without adding in that piece of, nope, we're going to do lectures 3 hours a day and you've got to be here or it's not useful. Because that to me sounded awful for me to deliver it and for you to sit there and listen to it. I don't know which would be worse. So the design is to fit in. I provide the framework and then you make it fit into your life. I'm very specific in the things I want you to do and the ways that we do them, but you have a lot of freedom in getting them done on a daily basis. So to me, it's not, to take your question and make a really long answer, it's not really all that different in my mind. The way that I prepare for my PANRE is the same.
I appreciate that. I wish I knew about this 22 years ago.
Well, like I said, I'm trying to get it in a little bit earlier with people, and even see if we can make some people's trip a little bit easier.
Thank you.
I was going to say, if I could add to that as being like this sort of outlier person, I feel like he's going to give you tools, like not just tools for like school, but like I feel like life lessons too. And it helps you like mentally and like in your studying. And so I honestly feel like someone that's not in PA school could take this. I mean, that's how like it just applies so well to techniques for studying. Like some things I found very valuable. Like I just like the schedule, like that helps so much, because you're like, okay, I need to cover this in these days. Like sometimes you just need that. I also like distinguishing between two questions that you think are like, oh, I could pick these two, like these are just big testing things that I feel like a lot of people struggle with, and that he kind of helps you through. Or like, what do you choose when you don't know the answer at all? See, like those are just very things that could help in any form of testing, whether it's EORs, PANCE, or PANRE.
Yeah, it was funny. I got an email from somebody, I forget who it was, from the February cohort. And oh no, I'm sorry, it would have been the November cohort, who had gotten their first job. And they were like, this is great because I'm using the things that you taught to learn the things I need for this job. And I'm helping my wife with the bar, because it's, again, like you said, it's very transferable, the skills that I'm covering here. Like, I gear it towards the PANCE, I gear it toward medical content, but it is extremely much about the skills. It's extremely much. That doesn't sound like the right way to have said that. Anybody else? We're a little over an hour. And I told these nice people that we would be here for an hour tonight. But I'm sure if you had any other pressing questions, they'd be happy to answer them for you.
I did want to chime in one other thing I did the morning of, and I totally forgot to mention this. So I, had the confidence cards, and I even had one for my daughter. Oh, I had two for my daughter, which she gave them to me like a week or two weeks before, that said, hooray, you passed your test, like PAST, like she's 6, right? So cute, with a little, look at this little sunshine, so cute. So I bought myself a congratulations card the night before and wrote myself a letter. And Brian didn't mention this, but I emailed Brian the morning of my whole email saying, I passed, I did the darn thing, and I'm so excited and blah, blah, blah. And I felt cool, calm, and confident going into the exam. And I knew this time would be different. I'm excited to be your colleague now. Lauren Repack, PAC, and then PS. I typed this the morning of my exam. And then I just closed it and saved it as a draft. So when I was done, when I got my results, the first thing I was like, I'm hitting send on that email. And that to me just, and I wanted to open up my card to myself because I knew that nobody else would tell me the words that I would long to hear except for me. And so I just feel like this whole course helps you find like how damn disciplined you are, how smart you are. Like I love it. Like, I mean, and I'll give Brian all the credit, but the other thing is, but I said this to my husband too, and he's like, he's going to tell you to get off the call. I said, I give Brian the credit, but I give myself the credit because you didn't do it. Like I did it. And I think some of these other courses, I think all the books, all these resources, like everyone's looking for a shortcut. There is no shortcut. You have to do the work, but like you show people how that they can. You show people that they can. And so, yeah, that's it.
No,
I just had to say that.
I absolutely love all of that because I agree. There's the shortcut is the work, right? That's the shortcut. And unfortunately, nobody wants to hear that. But the shortcut's the work. But right, I think this program does a nice job of demonstrating what work to do. So that's helpful. But like I said 100 times inside the course, one of my favorite quotes in education is "He who does the work does the learning." That's one of the reasons why I don't think me doing live lectures on a daily basis and having you show up as I talk at you is going to be all that helpful, because that's not you doing the work. That's me doing the work and you sitting there staring at me. Everybody wants that because you feel like that's the magic bullet. Because great, if I just listen, I'm going to do fine. But the reality is, like we talked about on Wednesday, that's not work. That's hoping that things just sort of get stuck in your head. And that's one of the reasons I chose not to set this program up like that. I spent a lot of time debating, should I do live lectures? Should I do recorded lectures? How should I do all of that stuff? And that's really the conclusion I came to was, you've got to do the work. Again, my story there is my physics professor in college writing his problems on the blackboard, going over and over and over. And they turn around and yell at us because we're all just sitting there staring at him. He's like, if you don't do your homework, you can nod along with me all day, but it's not going to help you, right? You can pay attention. And it would be I'm dating myself a little bit for some of you guys, but he would say, it's like watching Derek Jeter take ground balls. You can watch him and be like, oh, that looks easy. I could do that, right? And as you're sitting there, you could sit there and be like, yeah, this is fine. I get it. Whole different story when you have to do the work. But if you put in the practice and the time and you do the work, then yes, it can change a whole lot. And I'm a big fan of that story. So thank you. And I love that. And I actually shared that with a couple of people I've been working with, Lauren, your previous email. I think that's a great way to do it. And I keep saying I'm going to make people do that in the first couple of days of the 33 days program, is write me an email. I haven't done it yet, but I keep thinking I should.
I wanted to pipe in one more thing, and this kind of goes along with what Lauren said, but I'm not gonna divulge a ton of what Brett does in the program. But one of the things that we did was, and it was part of one of the dailies, was to picture your success and to visualize your success in the future. And that's something I never really did before. And it's something I really did every day.
And you thought was terrible and stupid and didn't want to do.
No, I didn't. No, to be honest, that was, I think, one of the favorite things I did because then, when I finally passed, it was like, oh my gosh, I get to now those cool things that I pictured that I would do, and I would do the day I passed the PANCE. Like I'm gonna do these things. I'm gonna call these people, and then I'm gonna. One of the things I added to the list was I'm gonna email, tell them I passed, and I got to turn all those things into a reality. But picturing all those things for 30 days or 33 days. And Brian will go into more about that, not just imagining it or whatever, but but it was just so cool to be able to do those things in reality, like part of the celebration. Anyway, it was a really neat thing.
That's great, Tim. I love it. Sorry, I'm just trying to look through the chat a little bit and see if anybody else has anything else that they'd like to share, or ask anybody. Let me do that then. We're getting a little bit longer, but do you guys, any of you guys have something you'd like to share just to wrap up? And then I'll talk about the thing I'm going to do for everybody who's on here still. So Haley, why don't you go first? Why don't you each just take a minute? Lauren's like, good, pick on somebody else. Take a minute and just sort of to close out for us tonight.
Ultimately, I just want to say that I really do think I passed because of the structure of this program and having it. It really does build on itself, and I understand why Brian spaces it out the way that it does, because otherwise it honestly is just a lot of information. I think 33 days is great. I personally have a medical condition, so I can't be staring at the computer like all day, every day. I get really tired. So I did take one day off a week, but I would use the structure that he made and like rearrange it a little bit, and he allows room for that. I think it's great if you're able to meet with somebody and you know, maybe task each other with going through topics that you know you're bad at. There's no point in reviewing things over and over that you're good at. When it comes to the PANCE, review your cranial nerves, make sure you know those because those are on the exam at the end. You know, little things that people just take for granted. You definitely want to review that stuff, but you don't need to go too far into anything. You don't need to study for 12 hours a day. And you have support. You have plenty of support in the program should you want it. You know, it's there.
Great. Valerie, you're next on my screen.
I would say if you're like at your endpoint and you want to look for, well, even if you're not at your endpoint, but if you're looking for something different, like this is the different thing. Like I haven't heard of anything quite like this program. And I'm telling you, it helps you in so many aspects of your life. Just like study techniques, like physically, mentally. And so if you have any doubts, like I feel like we all gave pretty good testimonials, but like ask all the questions you need to ask, because I don't know, there's like no regrets here. I know like money might be an issue, but like we've all said, like we were at a point where we just needed something different. And that's the thing too, if you decide to do the program, like you just try to put your all into it, because I feel like the people who tried to do all the things that he asks you to do are the people who got the most out of it.
Yeah, that comes back to you have to do the work, right? If you join and then just join, it's like, you know, I use the example of buying the Peloton and hanging your clothes on it. It's not that helpful. Lauren.
Oh, what can I say that I haven't said already? You guys are like, really? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I could go on and on. I just, this course was something different. This was something that I needed. It helped me to get on a good routine, but find a routine that worked for me by using, you know, your content guide. Yeah, I don't know. It works. It works. It works. The end.
Tim, anything else to add?
Just kind of, this is a little bit of a repeat what I said earlier, but doing, like, you're not going to do every, you know, aspect of the program perfectly every single day. But if you do 10 of the things, you know, really well, or 15 of the things mediocrely well, like if that's the word, then I think you're going to gain some improvement. You're going to see some advances. But you know, if you want to get the most out of it, you know, again, it's like if you want the improvement, you got to do the work, and you got to do as many of the things possible as, you know, as many of the things as best you can to get the most out of it, you know. And so I encourage you to, you know, you may, and again, you start out with day one. You start doing that one thing, then you build on it. It's like there was a game we played as kids where we'd bounce on the trampoline and do a trick, and then the next person had to do that trick and then another trick, and so you keep building on it and building on it and building on it. And I think it's laid out in a way that it's doable. It's not so difficult to do if you do it one day at a time and keep going and going and going and building on it.
No, great. Thank you. No, and that's exactly it. And Valerie touched on this as well. I'd love if I could give it to you faster, but I thought about that and there's no way, I have people reach out to me all the time and say, can I just have the lessons, right? Can I just buy those? And I'm like, no, because unfortunately, not because I don't want to do that, but because it won't help you. It's a step-by-step process for a reason. It takes time for a reason. I can equate it to something like learning to swim. I couldn't tell you how to do it, right? And then have you go do it. It doesn't work that way. You can't do it in a day. It doesn't work that way. We're building skills. We're not, so it takes a little bit of time, a little bit of effort on that end. So it is a little bit different. All right, we're over the hour mark by a lot. We're going to go ahead and wrap it up. I did tell you guys I would do something special for the people on this call. So what I'm going to do is but just say hi in the chat so I have a record of everybody who's here. And what I'm going to do is anybody who was here, well, actually, this is where I'm going to stop the recording part. So when I post, it doesn't have it. So great. Thank you so much for showing up. Thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate, and all of you guys showing up, especially the people who have been through the program and shared their stories with us tonight. If anybody wants to come back, I am going to do this again tomorrow night. Tomorrow's the last day to join the May cohort of this program. I got to shut it down because what happens is there's some software things that have to happen that I have to get you into, for example, the way the group works, and the way the videos get delivered and all that stuff. And it takes a little bit of time. Someone inevitably has a problem getting in, and I don't want anyone to be left behind on day one. So I have to close down registration early to make sure everybody's up and running. And like they told you, there are some things I ask you to do on a daily basis and some things to get through that I need you to have some understanding of before day one. Because if you read it all on day one, it'll seem very overwhelming. But if you have a couple of days, it's not too bad. So I do have to shut down registration a little bit early. So like I said, so if I have your name and you join, then I'll set you up with that product as well. And then, but again, tomorrow will be the last day to do that. Anything else before we sign off? Questions that popped up in your mind in the last 30 seconds? Or are we done here? All right, great. Well, thank you all so much for coming. I really appreciate it. This was a ton of fun for me on a Saturday night. I really do appreciate you guys coming. All right. Take care. Have a good night. And I look forward to seeing some of you guys real soon. Good night. That was fantastic. And I hope you got as much out of it as I did. I really enjoyed hearing everybody's experiences, how they're getting through, what they were able to accomplish. It's really, really motivating for me and really exciting to see what's possible. If you'd like to join the 33 Days to Pass Your PANCE program, you can always go to www.physicianassistantexamreview.com/33 to find out more information as to what cohorts are coming up or to register for the next cohort. All right, take care. Best of luck.